Today on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the big matchup coming up here in week 2 of this 2021 college football season. And that's going to be for the Oregon Ducks and the Ohio State Buckeyes, two teams of which who could definitely win their conferences in this 2021 season, and also both teams of which who could definitely be contenders for the college football playoff this season. So big matchup for both these teams here as we head into week 2. And we're going to go ahead and get started with this preview here today, looking at your team trends from last week. Oregon did beat Fresno State 31-24. Kind of a close matchup. I think Oregon definitely should have beaten Fresno State by more than that. I mean, a win's a win, but I mean, that was kind of a close win there considering Fresno State is only a team from the Mountain West. But nonetheless, they're 1-0, one-game winning streak. As for Ohio State, they beat Minnesota. Close game there as well, 45-31. But Minnesota, that is a good football team. The Golden Gophers definitely should be a top contender in the Big Ten West in this 2021 season. So overall, good win there for Ohio State, beating the Gophers by 2 touchdowns. Overall, Ohio State is 1-0 and also with a one-game winning streak, so both teams are undefeated to start off this 2021 season. So that being said, this game's on Saturday, September 11th, Columbus, Ohio. So the Buckeyes are the home team here, noon p.m. Eastern time will be your time for this matchup. So Ohio State is once again the home team, so that's going to give them a pretty big advantage. I mean, especially with having fans back. I mean, the shoe is definitely a tough place to play, and we've seen many good teams go into Ohio State and just have terrible games just because of how tough of a place it is to play. But the spread currently says Ohio State by 14, so the spread is pretty comfortable on the Ohio State side right now. Over-under is 64. ESPN FPI is also going heavily on the Buckeyes here, 87.8% chance of the Buckeyes winning it. So Ohio State is actually pretty favored in this matchup. I mean, both teams definitely are good teams, but I mean, when it comes to Ohio State versus Oregon, the Buckeyes are widely considered the better team as of now. Series history, Ohio State leads at 9-0, so Oregon has actually never beaten Ohio State in past years. Win streak is Ohio State by 9. Last game was in 2015 between both of these teams. So it hasn't been too long since we saw Ohio State and Oregon play each other. But of course, the thing is that Oregon has never beaten Ohio State. So this could be a big game for them to get onto the record there. Here's your stat comparison for these matchups. These are your 2021 current stats. So these were week 1 stats for both these teams. Oregon scored 31 points last week, allowed 24. Overall, I mean, their offensive stats were kind of slow. 172 pass yards, 186 rush yards. So obviously that can be very improved, but this was mostly a rushing team last week that we saw with Oregon against Fresno State. Kind of the opposite for Ohio State. They had 294 pass yards against Minnesota as well as 201 rush yards. So overall offensively, Ohio State played very well, I would say, against Minnesota. CJ Stroud, of course, made a couple of errors, a couple of bad turnovers, but of course, I mean, he is still a very young quarterback. So the way that he played in a high-pressure situation, I mean, he was playing on Thursday night when basically everyone in the college football world is watching you, one of the first games of the season. And, I mean, it's a pretty big stage for a young quarterback like CJ Stroud in his first official start for Ohio State. So that was a big deal for him, and he played overall pretty well. He did make a mistake or two in the first half, but really recovered and played pretty well in the second half. They also had 201 rush yards a game, Ohio State did, against Minnesota. As far as yards allowed, Oregon allowed 298 pass yards against Fresno State, but Fresno State's definitely more of a passing team, so they really didn't rush much on them. Only 75 yards for rushing for Fresno State last week. Ohio State, on the flip side, allowed 205 pass yards, 203 rush yards. So, I mean, it was tough for Ohio State to stop Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota last week, that is for sure. But overall, both teams had solid games last week, but Oregon, once again, does have a couple of question marks that do need to be answered. Some key points for this one: both teams are 1-0, so both teams are undefeated, but one team will leave this game with a loss. Oregon, of course, slow start once again last week against Fresno State. Anthony Brown, though, does show upside. I like him as a quarterback. Of course, it's kind of a different, it's a change from having Tyler Shuck last season, but overall, I do like Anthony Brown. I definitely think he shows some pretty good potential for this Oregon team in this offense, but they're going to need to start quick. You do not want to keep Ohio State very close in this game. I mean, if you can get up a couple of touchdowns early, that is exactly what you need. You need to start off fast and make sure that you don't look back, because, I mean, if Ohio State gets a good touchdown or two on you, it's going to be very tough to come back, especially in a very tough environment like the Horseshoe. But as for Ohio State, they had a great win against a good Minnesota team. Overall, looking like a pretty good football team. CJ Stroud is young, but shows some pretty big potential, and they do have home field advantage. That's a big thing about this matchup. If it was in Oregon, I would probably say Oregon has a much higher chance of winning. I think we could see a very interesting matchup if Oregon was at home for this matchup, but it is in Ohio State, and Ohio State is the more talented football team right now. I'm not saying Oregon can't win it. I think Oregon is definitely capable of winning this game, but it's going to be tough to pull a win off like this in the Horseshoe. Once again, it's possible. It's just going to be very difficult. But that being said, let's go ahead and look at my prediction for this matchup. I think we see more of a higher scoring one, but Ohio State gets the win by 11. 38-27 is my prediction for the final score. So I think Ohio State gets a win by 11. I think Ohio State mainly handles this game. I think Oregon kind of hangs around in the background here. But I'm going to take the Buckeyes to get the win over the Ducks. Once again, I just think Ohio State is the more talented team, and especially after Oregon playing it kind of close to Fresno State. I understand it's only one game, but that is kind of a red flag seeing how Oregon performed last week. But once again, I definitely see Oregon keeping it close. I don't see this game being a blowout right now by any means, but I do think Ohio State does win. 65% chance, so I'm somewhat confident that we see the Buckeyes get the win. It's just Ohio State being at home is going to be a huge advantage once again. It's going to be tough to play in Ohio State, especially considering it's the home opener for Ohio State. I mean, we haven't seen fans in the stands since 2019. So for Ohio State to be, it's going to be a sellout, I can guarantee you. Ohio State is going to be a loud, big stadium, tough environment. I think Ohio State shuts down Oregon in this matchup. Over under 64. I've actually got 65 total points in this matchup, so I'm barely taking the over. But I would be very cautious if you're picking the over or under in this matchup. It could easily go under as it could go over. I mean, I'm not very confident on either side. I am taking the over as of right now, but do be cautious about it because, I mean, both defenses are still pretty good. But I just think the offenses do prevail and we see more of a higher scoring game. But once again, I could definitely see it being a closer, lower scoring matchup. But 30-27 is my prediction for the final score. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup. This is probably the biggest matchup, I'd say, week 2. I mean, Iowa State is also a huge one between the Big 12 and the Big 10 there. But I think this is probably your biggest matchup. I mean, for Ohio State, this is a team that's definitely a big playoff contender and potentially with a loss here against Oregon. I mean, Ohio State basically gives their contention in the college football playoff to Oregon because, I mean, it's going to be tough in the Big 10 this season to be a one-loss team and get to the college football playoff. But that being said, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup, and I really appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.